And here I am. I know. How long ago was that? Yeah, it was about 10 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, it was. That was such a beautiful event. And I've been looking forward to coming here to do this all this time. So we made it happen. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. When did Monica pass away? What was that year? Because I spoke at her funeral here. Yeah. Yeah, she moved to LA. I think that's right. So that was the last time I was in the church. Was when, for her funeral. I know. It's very special. Very special. Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Welcome to November. Welcome to All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in Greenfield. And I'm so glad to see everybody here today. I'm so excited about having Artemis Jakowski coming and speaking with us. Let's see. Just while I'm in the introducing mode, I'm Kate Mason. I'm one of the lay leaders here. And I found this quote from Ken Burns about Artemis. So Artemis adopted this project when he was 14 years old. He was in the 9th grade, and a teacher said, "Please write a report on somebody with moral courage." And he asked his mom, and his mom, still smarting and hurting from the abandonment of when her parents left for Europe, for the first time in his life said, "Well, go talk to your grandmother. She did some cool things in World War II." So this has been a lifelong project for him, and we will certainly hear more in a little while. So I invite you to sign our guest book if you are visiting with us and you would like to get more notices of what's going on here. I also want to welcome Kit Johnson, our choir director with the pop-up choir, who you'll be hearing. And if you have any questions about Unitarian Universalism, there is pamphlets in the pews. So here we are. Let's pause. Let's breathe. Breathe deeply. Come into this room. Be present, be focused, and be at peace. In the words of Reverend Kathleen McTeague, we come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see communion. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope, is hallowed by our presence together. Let's take time for a quiet reflection as we listen to the prelude. Now we'll have the chalice lighting, and Artemis will read, and Marina will light the chalice.
This is the woman you're going to hear later in the film. She plays the role of my grandmother and has been a dear friend and spirit of this film and this project. And I'm going to say my grandfather's prayer, which he said every night in front of the hearth fire, and imagine a beautiful table of food. And he would say, friends gathered here and table spread and roof secure above our heads and great books waiting to be read. How is it we so faintly show, so greatly owe the gratitude we always owe?
Now we'd love to sing together. Let's sing Morning Has Broken, number 38 in your gray hymnal.
Morning has broken like the first morning. spoken like the first bird.
Wasn't that nice? Now, if you'll join me in the Congregational Covenant. So it's in your order of worship. In this house, we covenant with one another to create a community built on a foundation of love, to work together to promote equality, justice, peace, accepting responsibility for our individual acts, to stand on the side of love, embracing the liberation of the oppressed, and working to end discrimination and unjust privilege, to communicate with kindness and support, and to serve with compassion and commitment, to listen respectfully and value our diversity as a source of our collective strength, to learn and grow together, generously sharing our time, talents, and treasures, to celebrate the joys of discovery, from the wonder of youth to the wisdom of age,
to openly share our laughter and our tears, showing reverence for the divine in all that is.
Every week in our church, we take up an offering, which gives us an opportunity to exercise the generosity of spirit that sports All Souls and its many ministries. We see this act of giving, of growing more generous in our hearts and in our actions, as essential to our spiritual well-being. We will now receive the morning offering.
If you can imagine that on the night of March 14th in Prague, that was the song that was sung by the Czechs, commanding their vision that democracy would not peril in their country. And the next day, of course, the Nazis invaded and everything changed for a very long time. And thank goodness democracy has been reestablished in that wonderful country. But that song spoke to my grandparents deeply as they sat there listening to the Czech singers sing that song by their great Dvorak in honor of democracy. So thank you, that was very beautifully sung. Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge our beautiful pianist and how beautifully you played Appalachian Spring, and 'tis a gift to be simple, so thank you very much. So I want you all to close your eyes and just imagine that night before the Nazis invaded, and the passion of the Czech people. And I want to bring you to another moment where my grandfather, Waitstill, was preparing to leave with Martha to go to the Czech Republic. Waitstill's last words from the pulpit before their departure for Czechoslovakia were a ringing denunciation of Hitler and the Nazis. Waitstill's enmity toward fascism ran deep, and this opportunity to confront evil was vitally important to him. To Waitstill, this was a transcendent mission. In a letter to the congregation dated June 13th, 1939, Waitstill put all that sense of mission into words. Our last night,
as we sail down the harbor of New York City is a very vivid in our minds, a great lighted statue, a monument for an ideal, towering into the night. We live and work very much in its memory.
So on that fateful trip, sailing across the Atlantic to England, they stopped in England to really organize their mission. They knew that they had to learn spycraft and how to evade followers. They learned how to write in secret code and to find the right partners on their journey from London to Prague. And as you can imagine, they took a train through the heart of Nazi Germany on the Orient Express, which chilled them to the bone of what they were going to be facing. And also imagine that these are just two normal people who had no training in any of this. They didn't speak the language. They were Americans, democratically oriented, fiercely committed to the democracy of the Unitarian movement, and believing that they had a purpose by declaring war on Germany from the pulpit. Imagine a Unitarian minister declaring war on anybody, but they had that sense of purpose and that deep enmity that they had to stop this scourge before it would kill everyone. And they really had that sense that even though they had no training in fighting people or guns or knives of any kind, they had no idea of what they were going to be facing, that their faith was enough, their passion for democracy was enough, and their belief in the Czech people. They were welcomed on that train ride in Prague by a man named Norbert Čapek. And you might remember that name because Norbert Čapek created what's known as the flower service every spring. And it's from that spirit that Waitstill was welcomed on this incredible Wilson station, the train station in Prague. And he saw this horrific experience of people running like crazy to get out of the country. And he looks around and is welcomed up by Norbert Čapek, and Norbert Čapek says, "You've come to a nation in great crisis." And all the women were on the platforms crying, saying goodbye to their husbands because the husbands were in danger. These were all not Jews at this point, mostly social democrats who were the enemies of the Nazis and taking control of Prague and Czechoslovakia in general. Hitler had made a deal with the head of the Czech government, Mr. Beneš, President Beneš, that he would not bomb Czechoslovakia, that he would not invade Czechoslovakia, because in fact he wanted to retire there. This was his vision, that he would live in Prague after the war was over. And so they made a deal to not fight each other and to allow the Nazis to come in on the Ides of March, March 15th, 1939. And their work had gone from providing aid and food at the YMCA to now they realized something very dangerous had occurred. And the US ambassador begged them to leave. And the Americans also asked them, come home, don't stay there. But they stayed. And they decided to make their work about helping as many people as they could, and realizing that the most imperiled group of people were the Jews that were in Prague, refugees, many of them from Vienna, many of them from Germany, who had come to Prague as a sanctuary and now had to get out of Prague very quickly. And so through that experience, if you can imagine what it was like to have to deal with someone coming in with all their family possessions, their menorah, their prized silver, spiritual possessions, saying, I will trade this for a plane ticket or a bus ticket or a train ticket to get out. And suddenly you're not just dealing with saving lives, you're dealing with the crushing of an entire community. The whole democratic vision that had become part of the Czech Republic after World War I really manifested by a wonderful president, Masaryk, whose wife was Unitarian from New Jersey. And it was from that background that the Sharps were welcomed into the country. But now all that had been obliterated by the Nazis. And so they went into the underground and started that spycraft work of rescuing lives. We'll never know how many lives they rescued because they burned all the records for every person they helped. But we know now through research that we've done with the U.S. Holocaust Museum in D.C. that about 450 Jews were rescued at that time by the Sharps between February 1939 till November of 1939. And I can't even imagine the courage it took to leave my mother, who was 2 years old, to leave my uncle, who was 6 years old, to go to this war-torn area and then to stay and to keep helping people and keep helping people until there was an arrest warrant for their lives. And that changed everything when they were arrested. They were given, I think, about 3 hours to get out before the actual SS would come to take them away. And they escaped in those 3 hours, got on a train all the way back through Germany, which is kind of an amazing thing to think about, to London, and then came home in November of 1939. And of course, my mother was 3 years old, had felt a little bit, abandoned by their mom and dad. My uncle was 7 years old now. And they were so relieved to be out of the war area, but they also felt a terrible sense of guilt that they had not been able to stay longer and help more people. And then, of course, spoke at every Unitarian church that would have them pleading to get money and support to the groups that they had established connections with because the work never stopped. So imagine from 1939 until 1945, they were directly involved in the resettlement of over 10,000 people from Europe to any place they could get them to. The United States was very difficult to get into, very, very difficult to get into. But it was anywhere they could get a boat to take them from Europe to South America, Africa, Mexico, Cuba, Canada. Many actually were helped to go to China and to go east, which is a whole nother extraordinary story. And then one day in the early March of 1940, the head of the Unitarian Church announces in a church with Martha and Waistel in the church with them that Martha and Waistel will go back again because we need to help more people. And of course, Martha at that point realized this is not just a casual trip to go help some friends. This is, being a spy, a Gestapo fighter, and she's horrified by the idea of leaving her children a second time because she knows what's at stake. But they agree to go. And that's the most extraordinary part of the story for me, is that they went the second time. You can understand a little bit of naivete and kind of bravado. Oh, we're going to declare war in Germany and we're going to go stop these terrible people. But then to go the second time was kind of truly extraordinary. And for those who will see the film that Marina and I created, you'll see really this drama at that moment of how, the Unitarian leadership felt there was no choice but to do this. That this was a matter of life and death of people that were in their care. And yet Martha and Waistel, were just two, church bumpkins from Wellesley, Massachusetts, suddenly back on the European soil in southern France, helping those who had come from the takeover of Paris in 1940, June of 1940,
and had come down as refugees to the south of France, into the Vichy area to get out, to escape. And so during that period, they also helped to rescue, we don't know, maybe three or 4,000 people in their connection, with the help of the Quakers, with the help of the YMCA, with the help of the Carnegie Institute of Peace. In my book, I describe all the different organizations they worked with, because I never want you to feel in hearing the story that it was just the two of them alone. It was a network of not just an underground, like an underground railroad, as we know that story. It was really an underground of democratic liberators who fought all the way through the war to protect human life and to rescue as many people who would be killed. They trained Varian Fry, worked with Varian Fry, who, though some of you will know that name, or all of you will maybe know that name. Varian Fry was responsible for creating the Emergency Rescue Committee and with my grandparents, that then led to the rescue of Marc Chagall and Hannah Arendt and Max Ernst and many other of the great Jewish intellectuals and writers who had come from the north, from Europe, from the center of Europe, from Vienna, Germany, Hungary, and came south. And they did that work from June of 1940 until December of 1940. And the most beautiful part of the story for me was the rescue of 27 children that Martha did at the end of her tour. That really changed my life, because when I became interested in this story, the first thing I did was to organize a reunion of all these children with my grandmother for her 80th birthday. And for the first time, she met all the children, in quotes, that she rescued. She never knew what happened to everyone. So that was a beautiful moment in my life as a young man to honor my grandmother by bringing these children together. And that's when the film started. We started to film at that event. She became Person of the Week on Peter Jennings' ABC News. And you'll see that in the film, some of the footage we got in 1980 to honor her. And for me, their story changed my life in every way. I was a 14-year-old young immigrant to this country and suffering from a neurological disease and feeling quite sorry for myself in my hospital room. And my grandmother came in and said, "Stop feeling sorry for yourself. We're going to go help other people." And I realized that in helping other people, she was teaching me to not be in my own pity story of what had happened to me, but to understand that by helping others, you help yourself. And that's how my life became devoted to that mission of doing really anything I could to help others, and know that they will do anything they can in that spirit to help me. And really that is the message of my sermon today, is to really imagine yourself leaving your two young children in the care of a congregation. Like, imagine all of you took on the caring of two young children, so the two people who were the leaders of your church could go somewhere else to help people that were in terrible need. And it's hard to imagine that courage. It's hard to understand that sacrifice. But because it happened and because it formed, and I want all of you to take tremendous pride as Unitarians that this was the first act of the Unitarian Service Committee. The Unitarian Service Committee was started by my grandparents going to Europe in 1939, and they became the first ministers of that Unitarian Service Committee. And that service committee has changed so many lives since that time, fighting the Contra War in Central
America, particularly in El Salvador and Nicaragua. That service committee continues to this day and is doing remarkable work around the world. And that was all started by my grandparents, who chose to leave their family and go onto this mission. And then later in my life, I went to Hampshire College in 1980, and there are a few of my Hampshire College friends who are dear, dear people in my life. And I want to acknowledge two professors who were my teachers, particularly Myrna Breitbart, who's back there. Just wave to everyone, Myrna. If you ever want to know the real story of Artemis as a young whippersnapper, she knows those stories. She chaired my final thesis at Hampshire, and got my other best friend, Joseph, to help me rewrite the entire thesis, because even though the ideas were great, the delivery of the words were not as good as I could have made it. So Myrna coached me on writing, and that was my way of surviving and graduating from Hampshire College. And it was during that time that Waitstill and Monica had retired to Greenfield, and we would come here to this church together on many, many Sundays. And I remember the last time my grandfather preached from that pulpit, and it was that moment of transcendence that he knew that this was his final resting place, that this community would take care of him until his final moments of living, and that in living here with Monica, who he loved so deeply, that the community would continue to support her as she aged and passed away. And my last time of being in this church and preaching was at her funeral, at Monica's funeral, which was a very moving experience. And I think 2008 it was. Those of you who might remember could correct me on the exact date, but it was, I think, about 2008. And I was the only member of my family who was present. It was one of those moments where I realized that my legacy was continuing the legacy of my grandparents and their partners. The most extraordinary part of my own development as a young man was I was given an assignment, as Kate mentioned, in the ninth grade, to interview someone of moral courage. And I went home and I said, "Mom, what is moral courage? And who should I interview?" And she said, "Go talk to your grandmother. She did some cool things during World War II." And this was, not a woman that I associated as doing cool things during World War II. She had remarried an extraordinarily wealthy Jewish philanthropist and was a major fundraiser for Jewish causes like Hadassah and Youth Aliyah, trying to bring Jews and Palestinians and Christians together in this new country of Israel. And I would go with her as she would pinch my cheeks, and all the Jewish ladies would pinch my cheeks. They thought I was so, just so enamored with my grandmother, and it was just love, all love. And that moment of getting to know her was remarkable, but then getting to know Waitstill in Greenfield was the next chapter of my development as a person. He taught me how to compost. I'll never forget, every time I'd come, we would go out, and Patrick, who's here, will remember all of our composting days at Hampshire and after. But it was one of those things where he was a great thinker, a great writer, a great leader of people in the Unitarian world, but he was also a very down-to-earth naturalist. And imagine, his name is Waitstill. Waitstill. Because his father was a naturalist. Dallas Lore Sharp wrote 26 books, was the professor of English at Boston University, and every book was about nature, was about living in nature. And so his son was given this very Quaker name, Waitstill. And imagine any young man being given a name like that, Waitstill. One of the books my great-grandfather wrote was about the keeping and the nurturing of a bee colony to make honey. And Waitstill's
job on the farm. They were homeschooled as children in Hingham, Massachusetts, was to keep the bees, to make the honey. And so there's an entire book that Dallas Lord wrote about his son Waitstill keeping the bees. Very much in the spirit of John Burroughs, the kind of, the great nature writers of humans living together in harmony with nature. So the thing that I feel is most important to say to you all here is I'm very honored to be here, that I feel very much at home in this building, in your hearts, of what you've continued here in the spirit of all the great Unitarian thinkers, and to inspire us all together to be connected to social justice in a real way, and to support each other, to let each of us go do the work we need to do to help others. And that's what a congregation, and that's what a Unitarian community is all about. The fight for justice, the belief in democracy, the knowledge that there's no one dogma, that there's not one thing you have to agree to, that really each of you bring your own traditions, and those traditions are part of our mutual traditions as we create a lasting and loving community. So with that, I want to thank you all for giving me this chance to share this story, to be here in your presence, to be so inspired by your shining, beautiful faces, and to encourage you to come see the film later or find it on Amazon if you want to see it again, called Defying the Nazis. And I'll also be signing some books for those who would like a copy of my book at our later period of time that we have for fellowship.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I do want to say that Artemis chose the music for this service, and at this point, we're going to sing hymn 170 in the gray hymnal. We are gentle, angry people. Now is the time in our service for sharing joys and sorrows. If you have a sorrow that needs the help of this community to carry it, or a joy so great that you want to share it now is the time. It's also a great joy that we feel to have visitors here today. So we invite you to introduce yourself if you would like to, and let us know who you are. No announcements at this time. We will have announcements after the service. And mic will be brought to you, and it's open time here. Where did Rocky go? There you are.
Hi, I'm Tina, and it's been a really bad couple of months. We've lost three people with progeria, and first was Zach, who was 17 from Kentucky, and then there was Sammy Basso from Italy, who was very well-known scientist studying progeria with his own progeria, and he was 28, which is amazing. And then we just, a couple of weeks ago, lost Carly, who was 12. Can you hear me? So, of course, I am the one who would take all the numbers, 28, 17, and 12, add them together and divide them by 3 and get the average of 19. My Merlin is 23, which is very high. It's still higher than the average lifespan, but it's scary.
Can you hear me now?
It was a beautiful sermon that you gave, and I had always heard, I was raised a Unitarian, I was always, I had heard about the Sharps for many years, and...
Hold it closer.
Oh, sorry. And in the summer, and this is, it will sound a little off the subject, but in the summer of Woodstock, I didn't go to Woodstock. Instead, I went on driving across the Iron Curtain countries but we were camping, and we were driving in VW vans because it was organized by Alex Lipson, who wanted people to be able to not stay in tourist hotels. So, and when we got to Prague, I learned that when the Nazis invaded Prague, the Czechoslovakians stood along a road that was the wrong road and cheered for the Nazis going across. And he would explain that that the Czechs are known for using humor. And it was a wonderful story to hear. And thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Patrick Crowley. I'm here for the first time, and it's lovely to hear this story again and see faces that I know. And I sometimes go to
Hold the mic closer.
Oh, I sometimes go to the congregation in Northampton. So.
My name's Andrew Baker, and I just want to thank Artemis for the sermon and the thread of love to your grandparents. And I think that for me that resonated both because my grandmother is my thread that brings me to Unitarian Universalism, and because the thread that carries the Sharps, I think, into our lives is really built on the grandmothers and mothers of this church. That I didn't know Waitstill or Martha, but I did know Ermery Jones and Virginia Lowe and Nancy Buchanan and Monica Sharp. And those are the people who welcomed me into this church in 1993 or 4. And so it's that kind of thread, I think, that keeps us all bound together and moving forward.
Yeah, hello, my name is Daniel, and yeah, it's nice to see you again, Artemis. When I was 5 years old, I met Monica because my mom would go over to their house, and she would sit, and talk with Monica, and I would play with some cat and mouse magnetic toy on the rug as Waitstill Sharp sat quietly in his chair, and I never knew anything of his, of any of the, the important work that he had ever done. Until much later in life. It wasn't even something that my mom had shared. She would just bring me along with her as she went to talk with Monica. One thing that I would love to do, and I've reached out to the mayor's office here in town, and they seem supportive of the idea, is to have a plaque in town for Waitstill. So if that's something that people here would like to help with, I would love to chat with you about that and where it might go and what it might say and different things like that. So again, my name is Daniel, and definitely thank you, and thank you to your grandparents, and thanks for being here today.
This is a joy. My daughter, Essie Chambers, has a book which she's written, Swift River, and it's been named the Barnes & Noble Book of the Year. So it's going to be in Barnes & Noble stores all over the country. So we're very excited about that.
I second and third all the deep appreciation for the really moving sermon. Would you light a candle of sorrow in my own very minor version of trying to make a difference? I spent several hours phone banking in Michigan, and for about the first 40 calls, it seemed like the country was moving from the Statue of Liberty to statues of tyranny. On the 43rd call, please light a candle of joy for a woman I'll probably never meet named Teresa Morgan, who actually responded warmly to my getting involved and spent a few minutes with me and made me feel like there is hope.
Morning. My name is Russ. I started coming here in 1998, and I remember Monica as a group of older members of the church together giving a service, and her part of the service was the joys of worrying. But I also want to point out there is a small plaque on the back wall mentioning that the handicapped ramp outside the building that was built in 2001, that Monica donated to that ramp in memory of Waitstill.
Hi, I'm Richie Davis, and I have a great joy of being here today because I used to come to this church regularly when I was a young reporter, starting in 1976, and I heard many, many sermons that Waitstill gave here, was friendly with Waitstill and with Monica, and got to write about Waitstill later years, included that in one of my books of stories, and got to talk with Artemis and learn about what courage is about. And the great irony is that this was 80 years ago that we defeated fascism. through the courage of people coming together, and we're here in this moment where we're facing the same challenge. And so it's just a great joy to be here. I've wandered for many years through from the Temple Israel Jewish community of Amherst, Mount Toby, and my wife is now at the Amherst Unitarian Universalist Church through the service this morning. But I'm glad to be back here today to hear you. Thank you so much for your message.
It's a joy for me to see you here and to have memories of you interviewing my grandfather. You were the first to interview my grandfather. My grandfather never told the story of what he had done until he met you. And you became the first midwife of his story. And I'll never forget the beautiful article you wrote in the Greenfield Quarter.
Actually, that was Marie Jones who did the first.
Yeah. But Waisel believed that he was still under an oath of secrecy until 1970, what year? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
All those years because he was protecting the people he had worked with. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Tina again, and don't need to repent, and I don't need to be responsible, but my grandmother came from Germany, and she is the exact opposite of everything I have learned. And it's amazing that I have so many people in my life that I can listen to with different things. And so many people that I work for at a retirement community, Jewish people, that I get so ashamed of my grandmother. So I would love to light a candle for her. Because I know there's good inside.
On Zoom, we have, how many folks are on Zoom?
There are 6 people this morning, and Mary Towser would like to share some words with us herself.
Okay, I think I'm on. Hopefully people can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to add to the appreciation for today's speaker. I wish I had met some of the people to whom he's referring, the stories he's told. And so glad to hear their stories. My sadness is that I've mentioned at least a couple of times before that we had a friend who was ill and then was in hospice, and she passed this past week, surrounded by family and friends peacefully, and we'll be going to a celebration of life on Saturday and getting to be together and celebrate her. So her name is Sue, and yeah, so just that's where my thoughts are at the moment.
Thank you, Gary. Spirit of community in which we share and find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts towards one another, seeking to hold in our hearts all our joys and sorrows, both spoken and unspoken. Let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of the pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. Blessed be. Now we'll sing together while seated, Prayer to Friends, which is an insert in the front of your hymnal. Kristen?
Just to introduce Kristen, simply put, she's the love of my life. Here, sweetie. Yeah. Your choice. Yes, mistake. Oh.
Artemis's mother, Martha Content, described her reckoning of her parents' choices. We do not choose our parents, but I do know that mine honestly followed their hearts and their ideals and threw themselves into their life courses. They were determined, tender, compassionate, and had a deep empathy to help others. They deeply cared and connected themselves to a larger life, showing kindness to and saving many people along the way. As a child, it was hard to know what they had witnessed, and they didn't want to talk with us children about their sustained work or the horrors and struggles they had seen or felt. And as an adult, I was bewildered when I was told of their frightening life and death situations. Now I am less puzzled and realize that their passions were larger than life in spite of the dangerous worlds that they found themselves in. For the Sharps' moral compass was devoted to a fundamental battle for human rights. That was a war worth waging and winning. They were wise with gifts of courage and dedicated to reshaping the Nazi political landscape. We are better people and wiser for their personal experiences, and that is what they inspired us to be.
Kit, you're wonderful. Kit had a little stroke about 3 weeks ago, and he's doing it. So now is announcements, and I want to first of all invite everybody, anybody, to stay we've put out a great banquet, so you can enjoy each other's company and some food, and then at 1 o'clock, the movie at the Garden Cinemas is going to be playing, Artemis's movie. So stick around, eat, and I think, oh, and also this is our 200th anniversary. This is our church's 200th anniversary, so this is part of our celebrations. Sandra, do you want to talk about Monday night? Yeah, we do.